Lana and Bob Beyer changed their garden perspective when harsh weather intervened. They reduced their lawn, replacing dead St. Augustine with minimal sections of buffalo grass, pathways, and water-wise plants that attract wildlife. The process actually began when they moved to Austin from Houston in 2006.
I was a big plant collector, and I thought I could bring all those wonderful plants that grow so well in Houston to Austin, and I ended up losing about half of them, and I realized, well, this isn't Houston. So I had to make some adjustments and start learning about plants that are unique to this very tough environment that we have in Central Texas.
We laid out by groupings of plants because he was essentially a collector still. And said, well, it has to have some continuity, some plan to it. So that was the genesis of really designing, and I learned a great deal about how to design landscaping.
One of their original projects was a bed for succulents. Since then, Bob's learned which ones can take deep freezes, but all withstand drought. The former owners' raised vegetable beds were ideal for succulents that need good drainage, but the soil was not.
One thing about the cactus bed is the soil was so rich because it was organically amended for vegetable gardening. I had to dummy down that soil tremendously, put a lot of decomposed granite in it because most cacti and succulents like mineral elements, not organic elements, to grow effectively. Plus they need the excellent drainage as well.
But his ultimate revelation was incited by other plants that survived seasons of extreme weather.
I was still resistant to growing native and adaptive plants. I just still wanted to look for those collector plants, those really unusual things that nobody else had, just the thrill of finding something unique. And then I came to realize that even that's not going to work because some of those plants aren't truly adaptive. So I finally bit the bullet and really started learning about what is truly native and adaptive and the reasons why they survive so much better than other plants, and I've become a convert.
Yes, if he had any little doubt left, last summer did it.
Summer 2011 fried their central lawn. In winter 2012, Bob used a weed eater to scalp the remains. He piled up the refuse to decompose for natural fertilizer. Then he and Lana got creative.
I think having an actual paper plan on paper, like I say, we did it with erasers and pencils, but having an overall plan, I think it helps develop an appreciation for how things will look without having to make all the mistakes of putting them all in and then saying, well, this isn't working, we got to do it over again.
Walkways embroider mulched beds. They chose river rock and flagstones for the paths.
I didn't like decomposed granite for the reason that it gets caught in the shoes and gets tracked all over the place. It's too much the same color. And by using river rock, there's a little bit more variety of the color. It's a gentler look, I would call it, a gentler look. I thought that the decomposed granite looked rather sterile.
We enjoy the variance in color. And the size of the rock is important too. We're using 5/8 inch river rock, which we think is just about the right size. If it were any larger, it would be hard to walk on. If it were any smaller, it would be flying everywhere.
A dry stream bed meanders the raised beds.
During heavy rains, the water tends to congregate along that wall, and that's the natural flow pattern, so that was the ideal place to put a dry riverbed.
Lana built a little cave for the imaginary spring's entrance.
And then I said, well, if it's a dry riverbed, it's going to have stuff in it. So we have to have different kinds of rocks that would have fallen.
Pieces of wood, make it look natural.
It's going to have stuff in it to differentiate it from the walkways.
In the center, they modified their design to include buffalo grass left over from the front yard's makeover.
I called that the Lana Bob Memorial Grass Patch. But this was just enough. It gives it a splash of green in the middle, which is a very comforting thing.
Lana gave it standout attention with a wood-mounted bird bath, a clamshell she bought for 50 cents years ago.
So between the combination of the brownish mulch, the green center piece, and the white rock, I think that's a nice blend of colors.
In the mulched areas, they gave their new plants plenty of space to grow. Their design revolves around cohesive diversity.
Well, one of the things I said, because it was starting to get too symmetrical, and I said, well, how do we break up that symmetry? If we have this plant here, we have a matching one over here. I said, no, we're going to have those together over here, and we'll have something quite different over there. Different color, different texture, completely different plants. So that broke up that overriding symmetry without ruining the overall design.
I want each plant to stand out and show off on its own. We don't want to create a jungle. Yes, we've planted a lot of perennials, but we made our criteria simply that we don't want them to be more than 2 to 3 feet tall, 2 to 3 feet spread, and we planted them far enough apart where you can actually walk in amongst the mulch area and enjoy the individual plants.
And give them room to grow.
All, yeah, give them room to grow rather than have them all meshed together. We also we're trying to incorporate plants that will bloom at different times of the year. We also looked at the foliage texture, because a lot of times plants are, they go through dormancy periods between flowering cycles. And we also were concerned with having a variety of color. The attraction of wildlife. We have seen so many more butterflies and birds come to our yard since we've made this changeover.
The patio deck is a refreshing spot for outdoor entertaining. In their new design, they considered all perspectives.
I had discovered a long time ago that what might look good from 3 feet away, when you get 20 or so feet away, doesn't look so good anymore. And I had even run into an experience when we were doing this. I had this brilliant idea, I thought, and I set up something, and it looked really great up close. And when I stood up on the deck, I said, no, that doesn't look good at all. So getting that distance perspective, it was really important.
In front, they reduced their lawn to just 25%, required by their HOA. Bob got to feed his collector's soul with plants that are far more striking than plain lawn. Lana's wine glass design also pulls a street-side viewer directly into the garden. With leftover bricks from the home's construction, they added another tier to the existing raised beds.
It gives us an additional level of interest. It looks like it's always been there.
And then I got the idea of flowing a dry riverbed around the outside of it. We have a downspout where all the rain water comes down, and it was just a natural to flow the rainwater around that with the dry riverbed. Now, have we had to make changes along the way? Yes. I mean, we made minor changes, but what we do is we do it one step at a time, and like Lana mentioned earlier, take a step back, look at it, analyze it, say, is this really what we want? And if it is, fine, go ahead. If not, come up with an alternative.
This was a learning experience for the two of us, and it was very much a shared effort.
Absolutely.
With my knowledge of design and his knowledge of plants, it made a good team. It's much more inviting now, much more inviting.